All right. Hi there. My name is Alex Marland. I'm the Jaroslawski Chair in Trust and Political Leadership at Acadia University in Nova Scotia. And I'm joined today by Beatrice Wayne, who is the Director of Research and Policy at the Samara Centre. And what we're going to be doing in this particular segment is we just want to introduce people who are interested to understand why it is that Humans of the House is such an exceptionally useful, important, and insightful series. And so, Beatrice, maybe I'll throw it over to you to give us your pitch. Explain to us why Humans of the House matters, and then we'll go from there.
I think what makes Humans of the House so unique is that it's an opportunity to learn about Canadian politics in a way that really connects you to the experience of it. It's a podcast series. It's a 6-episode series that takes you through the life of the House of Commons through the individual experiences of MPs. But I think the key is that we're hearing them from the perspective of them after they've left office. So they're really forthcoming, they're really honest, and they're often really emotional about the experience. So it makes it really engaging and easy to connect to the material on a human level because you're hearing it in the voices of these MPs being really forthcoming about challenges they've had, about struggles they had, about really uplifting experiences they had. And it allows you to connect to the experience of politics in Canada in a way that's really connects you to the lived experience of it. And we've heard from feedback from people who've listened to that it has affected them in a way that helps them feel civically engaged, but also helps them understand what it's like to be a member of parliament and feel more empathy and connection to them as human beings, not just as sort of cardboard cutout political figures.
So, in your experience, why does it matter that people can be open once they've left the office? Why couldn't you have done these same things and get the same depth of honesty and raw emotion from people who are currently in the job? Why did it matter to talk to people who are leaving or who had recently left the job as member of parliament?
I think there's two aspects. I think one of them is being honest about how power works in the House of Commons and what it means to be in a position where you're accountable to your caucus, you're a representative of the government. You feel like the media and also your constituents will read into things you said, and you're really still acting in a particular way and really on message to say the things you're supposed to say, whether it's worrying about what your party will say, worrying about what the media will say. There are a lot of constraints on what people who are an active MP are willing to share about their experience. And the other is, I think, when you're in the middle of an experience, it's harder to reflect on it. You haven't had the time and space and cumulative experience to really make sense of your experience in the way you do after you've left, after you've had a moment and a beat to reflect on what the experience has meant to you and what you were able to accomplish in the job. So both of those things, I think, makes our interviews very powerful, both because they are unfettered by these concerns. They now have a freedom to really speak their mind, to really say what they were holding in that felt constrained by, whether it was their party or other constraints that I mentioned. And it's also that they've been thinking about this now and have had time to reflect and really consider what this experience meant to them and what frustrations they had that they weren't allowing themselves to feel before they had this break.
So let's give a sneak peek to people to give them an idea of what kinds of things they can expect in Humans of the House. So our former MPs recently, people who recently served in Parliament, are they talking about, how amazing it was and what a great experience it was and how it exceeded all their expectations? Are they talking about, some challenges they faced, some disappointments, some frustrations, some are they disillusioned? Like, what's the general mood that most of them are conveying to you?
I think one thing about the podcast is that it reflects a real diversity and range of experiences. It covers the highs and lows. But I would say that there is a lot of frustration and disappointment. There's a reason that one of our episodes is titled, I'm going to say the F word. It's because there is a sense of frustration in many of the experiences, and a sense that the House of Commons isn't functioning as well as it could be. And there are a number of constraints and different experiences that we hear in the 12 MPs that are interviewed. They each have an individual experience, but they each talk about real disappointments, frustrations, and some really elevating experiences as well. But they really lay bare some of the challenges that are facing Canadian Parliament.
So Humans of the House is pretty unique in Canada. I mean, where else are you going to go to be able to listen to, former members of Parliament just open up and explain their experiences? Maybe you could explain to viewers and listeners a little bit about what the Samara Centre for Democracy is. So you're based in Toronto. What is it that you do, and what is your mandate?
Absolutely. So we're a Toronto-based organization, but we cover the whole of Canada. We are a nonpartisan charity dedicated to make it easier to participate in politics in Canada. And we see that meaning a lot of things. It's not just about voting. It's about participating in local politics as well. It's making sure people feel like they're empowered and they have a voice, and repairing the relationship, repairing communication and trust between the electorate and elected officials in Canada. And we have three main buckets of research that go towards this. And one of them is we call the lived experience of politics. And this covers the experience of MPs in Parliament, but it also covers the experience of Canadians who are trying to make change in their community and how they go about doing this and the constraints they feel when they try to do this. So that's one bucket. One of the others is technology's effect on our democracy. So we also have a long-running project called Sandbox, where we look at toxicity online directed towards candidates in races. Those are municipal, provincial, and federal races, to see if that's a condition of work for people running for political office and how it's affecting representation in our democracy. And then the third is youth civic engagement. So we're really interested in supporting and understanding the sort of civic education young Canadians are getting, and looking for ways for how we can empower young Canadians to be involved in politics in Canada.
So I'm going to add to that, for students and others who are interested in understanding Parliament and beyond Humans of the House, a real compliment is to them is these particular books. So I'll just start with this one. This is very well known in Canadian political circles, and it is essentially a deep explanation about all sorts of things in Canadian Parliament that stand to be improved, and it's based on a series of exit interviews with former MPs. This one is a little bit lesser known, but this one is a continuation, and I find this one really, really useful in my research. What it does is it also captures things that former MPs have said. And so you get the raw commentary that party discipline really inhibits from MPs from saying. If you think about it, if you're working somewhere, you're not going to go out and complain about your employer while you're working for that employer, or there'll be consequences. Well, the same thing happens very much in politics. So once you leave, you are able to speak with a fresh voice, without the same sort of constraints and shackles that you do when you're in office. So I'll just say that these particular sources are very useful to me. But Beatrice, there's also items that are available on the Samara Centre's website. So what kind of other resources are available?
So our MP Exit Interview Project, which Tragedy in the Commons, Medial House Lives are based out of, also produced a lot of reports. So there'll be lots of different reports, some of which I know we'll discuss. But we also have resources related to our other research on tech and democracy. So we have Sandbox reports looking at different elections and looking how online abuse are affecting candidates. And then we also have a recent project called Verified, where we're looking at the state of online political conversation in Canada. The first series of reports in Verify were focused on the most recent federal election, looking at how people were talking about and exchanging political information online and the state of online political conversation. So how things like the online news ban and moderation practices are shaping the sort of political news and conversations we see online. And we have another podcast, if people are interested in, called Group Chat, and that's about topics in Canadian political conversation, but approached from a very accessible way, a way where there's open dialogue and an exchange of different views, but in a way that you would see in a group chat. So really easy to jump and dive into, even if they are some complicated topics such as the notwithstanding clause, local politics of diaspora communities, or democratic innovations in Canada, like citizens' assemblies. So that's another resource on our website.
All right. So last question for you in this segment. If we reflect on humans of the house, so somebody's just about to start paying attention, about to start listening to them, what is the one takeaway that you think listeners will get from humans of the house?
I think that the one takeaway will be a takeaway of empathy, because I think what it does is both show serious and systemic issues with how politics operate in the House of Commons, but also understanding that the individuals who participate, the individual MPs, are all coming from a perspective of wanting to help their communities, wanting to support Canada, and really coming up against systemic problems. And then instead of focusing on sort of the idea that there are bad apples in our political system and the problem are individual politicians, thinking about instead how we can connect to the humanity of our elected officials while still being critical of some of honest about some of the problems in our political culture in Canada today.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. And for those of you who are watching or listening, I hope you enjoy Humans of the House.